So, a while ago, I produced a video called Bad Theme Park Opinions That I'm Tired of Hearing. I essentially just shot down a lot of nonsense that I continued to see parroted all over the internet, with people just endlessly repeating the same opinions as if they were their own. Most of these opinions also come with a complete lack of critical thinking skills, like for example, stating that 1990's Epcot was completely empty because it was all outdated rides, without taking into consideration that the park used to be an absolute capacity monster, and that crowds were significantly lower than what is normal for that park today. I thought I did a pretty decent job of debunking a lot of assumptions that led to bad opinions that people would spread all over the internet without any thought. And so, for today's video, I thought it would be interesting to address even more opinions that I personally find to be annoying. To start off hot, right out the gate, I'm going to tell everyone to calm down about Mythos, because the food quality is nowhere near as good as people always claim it to be. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Mythos is a restaurant at Islands of Adventure in the Lost Continent area, which, since closing its last attraction, Poseidon's Fury, in 2023, the land has sat in a state of limbo, with nothing really going on in the area. The last operating remnant of the land is Mythos, a restaurant themed to Greek mythology that is considered one of the best theme park restaurants in the world. A big part of why this is the case is that it has a banner hanging over the doorway, advertising that it has been rated as the best theme park restaurant by Theme Park Insider, which it has actually won for 10 non-consecutive years. This is insane, when you consider that when it won in 2022, it beat out Carthay Circle at California Adventure, which serves food at a level that I think is easily classed as fine dining. Other restaurants that come to mind that objectively serve better quality food are the Brown Derby at Hollywood Studios, Chefs de France and Monsieur Paul at Epcot, and even a few quick service options at Epic Universe. I'm sure if I put any more thought into it, I could find plenty of other restaurants that easily surpass what Mythos is offering. So why does it keep winning an award that feels misleading? Well, Theme Park Insider allows anyone to vote for restaurants if they register to the site, and so it's not like actual experts are judging the restaurant for its quality. This isn't to say that Mythos is bad either, as I actually enjoy it a lot myself, but it's mostly because of its unique theming and atmosphere, offering a very comfortable, air-conditioned experience with adequate theme park food, which is really all you need most of the time if you're in a park. The issue is that people see the banner and rave about it like it's fine dining, and I think people need to hear and accept the truth that Mythos is essentially just an Applebee's attempting to do Mediterranean cuisine. With food, opinions obviously vary widely because people have different experiences and standards for what they consider to be good, but if you objectively look at the quality of ingredients and the skill in preparation, Mythos is the equivalent of a casual chain restaurant. It's a very safe, pedestrian menu that does well in a theme park that I personally enjoy for what it is, but it comes nowhere close to the best theme park restaurant in terms of food quality, and people need to stop treating it like something that it isn't. So, I'm not asking you to agree with me either. In fact, if you disagree, I would very much like to see you state your case. However, if you enjoy these sort of controversial opinion videos, please leave a like to support the channel, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, consider becoming a channel member or donating to Patreon if you would like to support me further, and let's get right into even more theme park opinions that I think are just outright bad. If you've been watching me for a while, then you'll know that I'm not really a fan of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. After Disney teased that this would be a technologically innovative ride, the end result was essentially a tech demo of trackless vehicles moving around an empty building with projections on the walls. The content of the ride and its scenes is also incredibly shallow, and not only do I think the entire thing feels lazy, but I'm actually bitter about it because it replaced the Great Movie Ride. I feel differently about the Disneyland version because it fits Toontown thematically and is essentially just a C-ticket capacity ride on an e-ticket budget, But yeah, I don't think I'll ever get over its placement in Hollywood studios. The Great Movie Ride not only worked as a thesis statement for the park, in that it celebrated movies as a form of art and gave the park a theme that tied every attraction together, but Runaway Railway doesn't make much sense in the Chinese theater, despite Disney's nonsense about a new Mickey short premiering in Hollywood. It's just Disney replacing rides for the sake of replacing them without any care for thematic cohesion, which was an important core aspect of their brand identity, something that clearly no longer matters to them. While many people recognize how important the Great Movie Ride was as a fantastic Disney attraction and understand why it was important, the flip side to that is a demographic of people who complained that they didn't know anything about the movies showcased in the ride. Many even state that Disney should have updated the ride to put in Disney movies instead. Now well, these are just bad theme park opinions. It's so clear that the Great Movie Ride, despite featuring popular films, illustrates a history of Hollywood movies and showcases those that define the different genres that were popular with American audiences. You may not have seen Singin' in the Rain or Casablanca before experiencing the ride, but it didn't really matter, because the purpose of the ride was not for you to point and shout that you know what each movie is. Sure, there were big films on Showcase that turned into franchises like Indiana Jones and Alien, but the purpose of the ride was not really brand synergy, so much as it was about displaying the best films that came to define cinematic genres. There is definitely a demographic of people who engage with pop culture, and especially Disney, at an unbelievably shallow level. People who care little for theming and placemaking, and more about just identifying popular things that they've seen before. Unfortunately, those are the people that corporate Disney is catering to, and is why the Great Movie Ride was replaced with a flashy Mickey Mouse ride that actually really fails to honor the character in any meaningful way. So, if you encounter someone who is glad that the Great Movie Ride is gone because they didn't know the movies, or wanted it updated with just films that Disney owns, that's just a bad opinion, because they're completely incapable of understanding the point. You know what I find to be highly overrated? Rocky Mountain construction coasters. In 2009, Six Flags Over Texas took a gamble with Rocky Mountain Construction, or RMC, to convert their notoriously rough wooden coaster Texas Giant into a steel and wood hybrid. Debuting as New Texas Giant, RMC proved that it could take an old wooden coaster and revive its popularity with this type of conversion, modifying previous layouts and combining new steel rails on wooden supports to create an experience that rode in a unique way. These new RMC hybrid coasters were also easily capable of inversions and more extreme elements, allowing them to become very attractive to prospective buyers who had old, problematic wooden coasters and wanted to premiere something new and fresh. RMC coasters are big, intimidating, and have a striking visual style that are unique only to them, but in my opinion, the market is already too oversaturated. To be upfront, I've been on Goliath at Six Flags Great America, Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain, Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa, and Air Force One at Fun Spot Atlanta. While I would say that these are all generally considered good, they don't really blow me away, and I think I've come to the conclusion that they're all just a bit overrated. Goliath and Iron Gwazi in particular feel a bit uneventful with their layouts, and are just lacking interesting forces as you float through the ride course and don't really feel much. People always seem to be confused about what I find to be interesting about a roller coaster, and for me, what makes them fun are good forces combined with relative comfortability. B&Ms are usually the example of what I find to be the best in the industry, as their coasters often hit you with aggressive positive Gs while also riding very well with minimal discomfort. I know that people disagree and complain about a lot of head bopping on the over-the-shoulder restraints, but if you're looking forward and bracing for upcoming elements, you'll rarely actually experience that. On the other hand, while I don't mind negative Gs, like floating through airtime hills or getting satisfying ejector airtime, my issue is when a coaster is all negative Gs and offers nothing else. I've said it many times, but while I can acknowledge that Velocicoaster is a masterpiece of engineering with great theming, and a unique layout that appeals to general parkgoers. I personally find it underwhelming because it's all negative Gs and very little else. You're essentially floating through the entire course, which I just don't find to be thrilling or exciting, and as you become desensitized to heights and speed, it's the combination of forceful elements that become the main appeal of a roller coaster. Sure, many people are intimidated by the 206-foot, 91-degree drop on Iron Gwazi, but if you're not, what does it offer? There's 2 inversions that you float through, and the rest of the course is just kind of whatever, not even providing strong ejector airtime when it seems like it should. In addition, while RMC trains are far from the worst in the industry, their lap restraints can result in shin banging, which I think detracts from the experience, as the trains can be a bit uncomfortable. Are RMC coasters bad? Not at all. Do they appeal to general parkgoers? Absolutely. But finally getting to the point here, the bad opinion that continues to annoy me is that anytime a theme park has a traditional wooden coaster that's in bad shape, so many people's first reaction is to shout that it needs an RMC conversion, and I really think that's often a bad call. RMCs certainly have their place, like with Airy Force 1 looming over the dinky park that is Fun Spot Atlanta, and obviously elevating it. But if you're converting a wooden coaster, you're removing a very specific kind of experience for a flashy airtime machine, and it's not always a smart replacement. I know that I said that I don't like rough coasters, but with wooden ones, that shaky texture of the ride experience is part of the appeal. Describing all wooden coasters as rough might be intuitive, but I don't think it's really true, as you can still design and maintain them in such a way as to not be painful. I was a really big fan of the original 1999 Gwazi, which was manufactured by Great Coasters International, and Alton Tower's 2018 edition of Wicker Man, which was manufactured by the same company. Both are extremely notable, not just for their theming, but by offering intense layouts with that classic wooden thrill, but still managing to be very comfortable. Or at least, the original Gwazi was notably comfortable until the park went downhill and failed to adequately maintain it. The point is, just because a wooden coaster isn't maintained, doesn't mean that it needs to be RMC'd, which fundamentally changes the experience when a park would still benefit from a more traditional wooden coaster. And honestly, RMCs are kind of hit and miss anyways. I know that this opinion is more subjective than something that is based on bad information that can be debunked, but I think that traditional wooden coasters are being underappreciated for the experience that they offer, and that RMC is in desperate need of innovation. Perhaps a steel and wood hybrid with a more traditional wooden texture would make for an interesting experience, and maybe that would be the right way to go if a park has a problematic wooden coaster that they would want to convert. Otherwise, I think that designing and building an entirely new wooden coaster is the right choice in many cases, as the engineering capabilities of companies today have resulted in some really fantastic rides that shouldn't be dismissed. This video is a bit on the shorter side because I'm a bit mentally burnt out, and I'm having trouble coming up with ideas that would make sense for a video like this. Instead, when I asked people for other bad theme park opinions on my community tab, a lot of you came forward with interesting ideas, which don't necessarily fit with how I would format arguments for this video, but I thought it would be fun to take a few of these and provide some commentary to go along with them. This first comment comes from Ninth Shinigami, which I always appreciate seeing you in the comments on the videos since you've been around for so long. I see that you're essentially criticizing people who say that Universal isn't comparable to Disney and doesn't really meet their standard, and I agree. There is a demographic of people out there who are completely blind to anything else being worthy of interest outside of Disney. While both companies follow different design philosophies, like for example, sightline cohesion seems to be a lot less important to Universal, in some cases, it's not really fair to compare them when they're not attempting to do the same thing. Comments that I always see that annoy me to no end are people who dismiss Universal as having big, unthemed coasters, which is something that Disney would apparently never do. The majority of Disney coasters are either themed mine trains or hide their layouts in the dark, and that works fine for them, but to say that something like the Incredible Hulk is unthemed is just downright antagonistic ignorance. It's clearly conveying a thematic idea in the abstract through its aggressive layout, sound effects, and surrounding theming, and is a different kind of expression that you just won't find at Disney. Now, perhaps it lacks the diegetic theming of something like Big Thunder Mountain, but if every coaster is constrained by this design choice, you're really limiting your creative expression, and those hardcore Disney people often don't know how to think outside of a very specific box, as if Disney's way is the only way. Otherwise though, I agree that the two companies are very comparable, and it's disingenuous to pretend that they're not similar in most other aspects. Universal has a lot of great themed restaurants, even outside of Epic, and their dark rides are more comparable than ever. When I look at Rise of the Resistance, I very much see a ride that is trying to compete with the fast-paced, action-based attractions that Universal pioneered. And while there do seem to be some differences in how park staff operate between both resorts, they are more comparable than they are different. So yeah, to say that they aren't equivalent in the lands and attractions that they put out may be true if you're looking at the nuances of design, but in general, they are very much competitive creative products. This next comment comes from Quasadingo, who says, "Don't complain about X ride/attraction closing. It never got long waits anyway." I've discussed this kind of specific annoying comment before, really highlighting it in my video about the removal of the Rivers of America in Magic Kingdom. But yes, this kind of person has zero understanding about the importance of less popular attractions on park capacity. Did Tom Sawyer Island draw a significant number of people away from the other attractions in the park? Not really, but it's these smaller experiences that add depth to the overall experience and are more accessible through their shorter lines, providing relief from the overcrowding that Disney often suffers from. When you have a top-heavy park with very few supplemental attractions, you get something like Hollywood Studios, which just isn't a place that I want to be because it feels like there's nothing to do. Its ability to provide smaller attractions has continued to diminish, especially with the closure of Muppet Vision 3D, and it just feels like lines are always long, which makes me not want to go there. Consistent high waits, like 45 plus minutes for something like Alien Swirling Saucers, really shows how poorly managed and built out the park is. That's why having an abundance of smaller, less popular attractions is important, because if they're designed well, they can add a lot of value to the guest experience, which is proven through the sheer number of attractions offered at Disneyland. It's obvious that Disney executives don't care and have to justify every inch of Walt Disney World park space as something that needs to be monetizable, but long term, I think the current direction of the parks will really hurt them, as they're just not pleasant places to be, and this will likely affect repeat visitation. The final comment comes from Bailey B. Woods, who said, "I feel like most people who say stuff like, 'It's a small world, it's so creepy,' only say that because everyone else says it." You're definitely correct about that one. It's people who aren't capable of holding real opinions who have to repeat that about the attraction, which always makes me want to roll my eyes, because no matter which version you are experiencing, it's one of the most fascinating rides ever created. I've discussed this in older videos, but there's so much political and historical context behind the ride's creation post-World War II, and the actual content of the ride itself, reflecting a very 1960s American view of the rest of the world, is a fascinating signature of that era that makes the ride almost like a cultural scavenger hunt with a lot of depth. Not only does the ride go underappreciated by the average person who misses this context, but the annoying tendency to just repeat other people and agree that it's some sort of creepy doll ride dismisses what is one of the most fascinating attractions to ever exist. When I set out to write the scripts for this video, I initially had other ideas, but I realized that they could probably justify entire videos in and of themselves. For example, everyone seems to agree that Race Through New York with Jimmy Fallon is a terrible ride, but I actually think it's really well designed, and is just a victim of its circumstances and the creative direction of the era that it premiered in. I also considered addressing the common sentiment that Universal Studios Florida is the weakest park in Orlando, but honestly, I think it's a lot more engaging and fun than Hollywood Studios, which is its closest equivalent. Hollywood Studios has 3 standout attractions versus Universal's 7, which also benefits quite a lot from its seasonal events. The park is held down by its oversaturation of screen-based rides, which always dominates the discussion, but I think there's an entire video worth of arguing in favor of the park, which I anticipate will also now see real investment now that Epic has opened. maybe those will become videos or maybe not. But if you enjoyed this one and have some hot takes of your own, definitely let me know in the comments. As always, if you want to support this video and the channel, you can do me a favor by leaving a like. And if you haven't yet subscribed and hit the bell notification yet either, you can also do so now to be alerted to new videos as they're released.